want me to.
Good evening, everybody.
You're lovely.
For those of you in the back of the room, it's time to find a seat, please.
Pizzo, me dicen que Pizzo no viene. Pizzo se rompió la espalda. Bueno, le doy la espalda, pero ahí está Maggie, ella va a venir para acá. Maggie,
Folks in the back of the room, please find a seat. There are plenty of chairs up front, and if you sit here, we can embarrass you. Everybody, please come to find a chair, make yourself comfortable, and we are going to need to borrow Maggie Gerson. Okay. For everybody who is here this evening, I wanted to thank you for coming out. Anybody who's here for the first time at an MBU event, please raise his or her hand. Welcome. I hope you find it to be enjoyable. There are plenty of people, as you can tell, who have been here before. If you have any questions, please ask any of us anything. This is an Ask Me Anything event, so it's perfect. I wanted to let you know before we get started tonight about a couple of things. First of all, there has been an unfortunate change in this evening's plan. State Senator Pizzo is literally and figuratively laid up. He just got an epidural, so he will not be here answering questions. But Maggie Gerson is right here, and she will be joining us up front, along with our hometown favorite, Mike Grieco, who can answer questions as well. And I will let Mike and Maggie do the heavy lifting on this, but Mike and Senator Pizzo go back years before they even ran for office. So I think I'm confident in State Representative Grieco's ability to do what needs to be done tonight. Before we get into the event at hand, I wanted to let you guys know that if you are not, for the new folks who are attending for the first time, if you're not yet a member of Miami Beach United, there's no time like the present. We've just secured the first social event location, which we're very excited about, which will be at the end of March at a venue on Ocean Drive. And if you're a member, you get to come for free. So we hope that you join us for a year membership for $25. That membership goes to supporting events like this, to be able to video the event so that if you're not able to attend one, you can come see it online, and to put together social events and do other cool things like that. We will also be having a volunteer cleanup in April, probably at the end of April. We're working on the date, but that is another great opportunity to meet your neighbors and do stuff with your family and do a little good for the community as well. We're not just all about being wonks and nerds at City Hall. We want to build a better community together with all of us here. So I look forward to seeing you guys join if you haven't already, and to tell your friends and neighbors. You can check us out online, Facebook, and on our website, which is brand new. So please poke around and ask us questions if you have any. With that being said, I would like to welcome you to this evening's event. The thought behind this was to have our two newly elected state representatives to Tallahassee to be here together to answer questions, because it's one thing to know people as a neighbor or somebody you bump into at the supermarket or somebody who represents you at City Hall, but it's another thing to have a person who you can speak to about what happens in Tallahassee. I think for a lot of us, we're not entirely sure what goes on there. And we'd like to illuminate that process and as well talk about what makes somebody go from being a resident, a neighbor, just a regular person living his or her life to getting involved in activism and then getting involved in City Hall and then getting involved in state representation and who knows what else. Not everyone takes that linear of a path, but the thought was that we could ask all sorts of questions along those lines as well. I do want to say this is intended to be a nonpartisan event. I do not want to get into debating the merits of one particular item or another. This is more about the process and how we can work together for the greater good, how we as residents can get more engaged with our elected officials at every level, at City Hall, at the state level, and at levels beyond that. So Without further ado, Maggie, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit to come up front so people can ask questions if they have any. And State Representative Grieco, I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Thank you, Tanya. So just so everybody knows, Maggie and Jason and I all used to work together. So we are all former prosecutors, and Jason is lucky to have Maggie because it's almost like having two senators, which is great. And we're working on a bunch of bills together, and I'll try to speak for Jason on some level as well. So Jason, one of his major passions, Senator Pizzo's major passions is working on gun reform, gun control. It's one of the major issues that he addressed during his campaign, and it's one of the major issues that he's addressing now. A lot of what he was working on in his last stint at the prosecutor's office involved gun violence, teen gun violence in the inner city. And when you do have an opportunity to speak to Jason either one-on-one or in a forum like this, please take advantage of it. He is a wonk. He has so much information when it comes to just statistics and solutions. So I don't want to steal his thunder when he does have the opportunity to speak, but I think that that's exactly the first thing that he would want to talk to you about. We are lucky here in Miami Beach that we're not dodging bullets, but the reality of gun violence is obviously not that far away, and we do have shootings here, usually not committed by people who live here, but it's by people who come here and victimize folks who either live here or come here on vacation. For those of you who don't know me, I'm looking around the room. I think I can count on one hand the number of people in this room. Let's do this. Raise your hand if you have my cell phone number. Yeah, so there we go. So, it's a family event. I like this. This is good. If you don't get it, you can get it from Franco. Franco's in the back there. Franco is my legislative aide. To a little partisan joke, I stole him from the Republicans. So he used to work for Carlos Curbelo, and he's my right hand in Tallahassee. He's also a Miami Beach resident, and somebody who I rely very heavily on. We also have a district aide. My local office is not in Miami Beach, but not by choice. And it's in North Bay Village, and Kavi is my district aide. She's not here tonight because she was at a different town hall we had last night in Little Havana for the other half of the district. So for folks in Miami Beach, downtown Miami, Little Havana, that's also part of the district, as well as North Bay Village. I represent about 160,000 residents. And although it is a heavily Democratic district, and I won overwhelmingly beyond that Democratic leaning, I obviously represent everybody. I represent the Republicans, the Democrats, independents, whatever party you are, I represent everybody. And that, whether this is a nonpartisan event is not really relevant, because when your elected official is in the minority, in order to get things done, you can't just bully your way around. You have to really work with both sides of the aisle in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. The House of Representatives has 120 members. Of those 120 members, 47 of them are Democrats and the remainder are Republicans. I think there's 1 or 2 open seats right now, which means that you have to work very hard to get your bills heard, to get them through the process, and to get them passed. Luckily, the Speaker of the House is part of the Miami-Dade delegation, which is the largest delegation in Tallahassee. And he and I actually see eye to eye on a lot of things. He's what I would describe as a conservative libertarian. I'm a liberal libertarian. We both believe in certain levels of small government and limited regulation in some regard. So the committees that I sit on, I was blessed to be tapped to be the ranking Democrat, the ranking minority leader, even as a freshman, on the Criminal Justice Subcommittee, which is a big deal. It is a big deal, which means that we're the tip of the spear on essentially every criminal justice issue that comes before the House in 2019. That's everything from the omnibus bills with criminal justice reform, or smaller things like things that I'm working on that I'll discuss as well. I also sit on the Healthcare Appropriations Committee, as well as the Pre-K through 12 Quality Subcommittee, and also on the Higher Education and Career Readiness Subcommittee. So I actually got all of these committee assignments I like, all of them that I wanted. And I'm able to get things done independent of those committees for the district as well as within those committees. When I ran for office, my pitch was always residents first, party politics second, third, maybe fourth, really depending on what's going on. So most of the bills that I filed are not controversial when it comes to partisan politics. But I never thought that the biggest controversy that I would create in 2019 involved fire sprinklers. So if you happen to live in a condominium, you may not know that by the end of the year, if your building is not equipped with fire sprinklers in every unit and in the common areas, they're going to red tag your building. Bye-bye. Your building is no longer occupied. It can't be occupied. The fire marshal will come and shut you down. That is the existing law in the state of Florida. They changed the fire codes back in the 90s, so any building that was constructed essentially prior to 1990 doesn't have fire sprinklers. So let's extrapolate that out statewide. Do you know how much it costs to retrofit fire sprinklers in a condominium? Millions of dollars. You know how many condominiums there are that would need to retrofit by the end of the year? Enough to make it billions of dollars. I should have gotten in the fire sprinkler business. But what I did is I filed a bill this year, got a co-prime sponsor with a member of the opposite party. Actually, Senator Pizzo is the Senate sponsor. And it is a bill that allows buildings to opt out. Imagine if you're on a fixed income and you've owned your condo since the 70s and you have to measure out every nickel every month in order to survive. And then you're told that you have a 5-figure assessment you have to pay for a multi-million-dollar assessment for your building that is imposed upon you by the state government. You have to sell, and you're on the street. And for all the talk about affordable housing that you hear in Dade County and Miami Beach, that's probably not something that we want, is people losing their homes. So I filed that bill. This is a bill that actually passed in 2017 and was vetoed by then Governor Scott. But we believe that it's going to be embraced again in 2019, and I'm hoping to save Floridians billions of dollars. This affects many buildings in Miami Beach, many more buildings throughout the district and throughout Dade County. And it's something that I'm very proud of, but at the same time, it's going to require a lot of work to navigate the waters of Tallahassee. There is plenty of lobbying going on the other side, but I have been inundated with support letters throughout the state, and I direct them back to their own representatives to tell them to make sure that they vote for that bill. Another bill that I filed that specifically impacts us, there's a law in the state of Florida that if you are a firefighter, a police officer, if you are a corrections officer, a security guard, I mean, there's about 20, 30 different people, jobs, that if you have a battery committed on you, it is a felony. It is enhanced. 3 jobs that are not protected are park rangers. The park ranger program, which I authored years ago, those folks that are out there doing almost police work, especially out in Lotus Park and in our other parks, to protect us from folks that you don't want to be victimized by. Lifeguards and code enforcement officers. You can spit, kick, and slap them, and it's just a misdemeanor. So I filed a bill to make it a felony to include them in that bill, in that statute as well. I filed a bill to eliminate conversion therapy in the state of Florida. If you don't know what conversion therapy is, watch the movie Boy Erased. It's essentially telling teenage boys and girls that are LGBT that they're straight. It's sad stuff, and it's still legal in the state of Florida, and I don't think it should be. That bill will never see the light of day, but it's a bill I filed, and I'll continue to file it until the government embraces the concept. I'm trying to think. We only, on the House side, see they get to file as many bills as they want. So on the Senate side, they can file unlimited bills. We only get to file 6, unless it's what they call a repealer bill. A repealer bill is when you actually are taking the law off the books. So I filed 6 bills, and the 7th bill, which is my repealer bill, which is, it grants local governments the ability to eliminate plastic bags and styrofoam, something that there's currently a preemption on styrofoam preemption was created after we created the styrofoam prohibition in the city of Miami Beach, and then the evil chemical company that makes styrofoam went to Tallahassee and stopped every other city from doing it. So I think we should go back to letting cities control whether or not they want to have plastic bags and styrofoam in their cities. Right now, we can't do that when it comes to plastic bags. And actually, there's a push in the other direction, kind of going with that government regulation, libertarian thought process that you'll see amongst the leadership. I did file a couple bills related to marijuana. You'll be reading about that in the paper in the next couple of days. Those won't see the light of day, but you can expect that in 2012 houses by Republicans. And it is the first significant criminal justice reform that we've seen in some time, granting judges the ability to waive minimum mandatories, giving them a lot more discretion than they would have had in the past. It's very similar to the federal model. And right now we have about 100,000 folks in the Florida prison system. And whether you want to change the rules because you just think it's the right thing to do, or whether you want to change the rules because it just doesn't make financial sense, we're changing the rules. So that's some of the things that we're working on. I'm trying to think what other hot items. Obviously, the budget, I filed a significant number of appropriation bills, many of which I've co-sponsored with Senator Pizzo, some for Miami Beach specifically, North Bay Village, the county. Some have already been heard. I've already made some bill presentations in committee, including a huge appropriations request for the Holocaust Memorial, and that's something that Jason and I have been working on now for the last few months. It's very different up there. There's a term that I learned. It's called drinking from a fire hose. That's what they call it in Tallahassee, because you have to do everything by the amount of information, the vernacular, the number of people you have to figure out who they are. You have to learn where the bathrooms are. You don't know where you're living. You're living out of a suitcase. It is a lot to take in. And being a local elected official prepared me pretty well, considering where I came from, because the budget was bigger, because we were dealing with more publicity, bigger ticket items. It was a lot easier to transition up there, but it is definitely different. It is definitely a challenge. It is not sometimes as democratic as you would like because of the structure of the legislature. The way they structure the committees, the way they structure even the seating chart, which I just got today, and I got a crappy seat on the floor, but that's okay. Got to make sure my dad has a good seat next to me so he can see me. But it is definitely different. And the other term that I learned is you cannot see Miami from Tallahassee. You cannot see it. Whether it's metaphorical or not, you cannot see Miami from Tallahassee, which makes my job that much more difficult because we are such a donor community. This district, District 113, is the highest tax generator except for Disney. We have between South Beach, the Port, Little Havana, the Marlins Stadium, the AAA, the eastern half of the Arts Center. We have a lot going on here. This is by far the sexiest district, but we have a difficulty sometimes bringing money back. And some of my predecessors had different priorities, and I am not in the business of throwing bombs. I'm in the business of getting things done. That's how I was as a commissioner. It's how I plan on doing it as a state representative. I haven't changed the way I do things. When I'm here, I'm here. I just fed 500 families this morning up in North Beach. And we have some of the volunteers actually here today. So when I'm here, I'm here. But when I'm up there, I'm still here. My heart is always here. It's very different up there. There's no other way to describe it. It's a challenge that I embrace. I see a lot of folks in here who put me up there, and I can tell you I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to get some bills filed, get some money brought back down here, and make sure that we're relevant, because it seems like a lot of our dollars get spent elsewhere. On the education front, that's probably one of the higher profile issues going on in Tallahassee, whether it be about school choice, whether it be about charter schools, whether it be about something called the DCD, which is how Miami-Dade gets essentially screwed every year. The DCD is a compression model that is kind of, it's like magic. It's just, we don't get what we deserve per pupil, even relative to other counties, because they don't even measure that it costs more to live here and just to operate and own a home and buy groceries, and we don't get credit for that. So there's actually a bill that was proposed on both sides. Both the Senate and the House bills were proposed by Dade delegation members. I'm co-sponsoring the bill, and it will give us more of our fair share here in Dade County. But there are charter school issues related to funding. There are school choice issues and vouchers that are going to be coming up this year. And there's a lot of support for that amongst the majority. And you may see some changes. And the governor has made it very clear how he feels about public schools and what is deemed a publicly funded education for purposes of the budget. I like the budget. I like what I hear from some of the things that are coming from the governor's office. I have a great relationship with the lieutenant governor. I'm still in communication with the previous lieutenant governor as well. And I like what I'm hearing on the environment. I like what I'm hearing on the budget in general. And we're really hoping to accomplish more as a delegation. And I'm looking to accomplish more along with Jason for our districts than we've seen in years past. It's humbling to be back here. Last time I was here as a candidate, and for that as your commissioner, and to be able to come back now. And Adrian, I'm making you nervous. What happened? See you. It's great to be back, and to see so many friendly faces. So I want to give Maggie an opportunity to kind of supplement what I'm saying with some of what Jason's working on, because she's actually the brains behind the operation over there. So I'm going to pass the mic to Maggie for a few minutes, and then we're going to open it up to questions.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Unfortunately, as has been stated, Senator Pizzo is unavailable to come, and normally this is one of the things that he loves to do because he loves to talk. He loves to tell people everything that he's working on. And as a freshman senator, he is really enjoying the time that he has had up there and is really looking forward to his first session. Some of the bills that he is pushing, one of them, and I have to give it the first credit and first shout out, is actually because he received an email from a high school student. Goes to Beach High. She's actually present, and I'm actually very happy to have met her, and I'm glad she came. And she should be very proud of what she did. She actually reached out to the senator, and she made him aware of an issue that's going on in Dade County School where kids are actually overdosing on opioids. She can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's it. And the bill actually requires that schools in Dade County have Narcan so that they could be administered to students in case one of those overdoses does happen. And she actually opened my eyes and the senator's eyes into the issue and the large number of cases that it actually does happen to in the schools. The senator, as Rep. Grieco stated, works very hard and did even as a prosecutor to prevent firearms and shootings. While he worked at the state attorney's office, he mainly handled cases where juveniles were shooting each other. And he always liked to say that he lived on the north side, but worked on the west side. So he was always able to see the issues that both sides were having. And as a prosecutor, what he was able to see was that several students, well, several young kids, several minors were going back and forth. They were having a digital turf war and going back and forth, and it was always precipitated by some Facebook posting. So the senator actually proposed a bill that would make it illegal for minors to post themselves either on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter with firearms. The senator also proposed a cannabis bill, which is similar to Rep. Grieco's. There's a very interesting condo bill that I had spoken to a few people here today. And I'll be available to answer any questions on any of those bills. If you guys have any questions. For now, the senator is looking forward to going back and fighting for it. Another thing that the senator really is also pushing for is infrastructure. The pipes and the sewers are all rotten and need to be replaced. So he's really hoping that a lot of the legislative funding initiative requests that he has put forward will actually be funded and help the cities out. Thank you.
Okay, so what I think we should do is we have a roving mic.
Not me.
There's several roving mics in the hall. There is one that I will pass around. So if you have a question for either Maggie or for Rep. Grieco, please raise your hand.
Go to Jack. Jack's a friendly one. Go, Jack.
Let's start right
Jack got
here.
his hand up.
Do you want you to come up and stand up and everyone can hear you and see you and there.
Hi everybody, my name is Emily and I am a beach resident for 40 plus years, let's just say. I actually have two questions, and one I might be wrong about, but you had mentioned you sit on the health committee. So my question is this: one of the issues with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, which I think we really do need to focus on as a full state, is the fact that physicians could not divulge because of HIPAA mental health warnings. So my question is, without being penalized, because I don't think we're going to be able to, in this current atmosphere, create more gun restrictions. I don't think it will pass in the state of Florida. But if you take away the penalty for a physician for reporting someone prior to a crime, we can build on that. Is that a possibility?
So it's a great question, and I know that there are discussions about expanding physicians' ability to do exactly that. This is a very difficult year to see any movement in either direction on gun control. There are bills filed to take it further. There are bills filed to reverse a lot of what was achieved last year. Regardless as to how you feel about the Second Amendment or gun control, there were a lot of changes made to the laws last year, and it's what I call fake hustle, because it was in reaction to a tragedy. And I know I'm speaking for Jason when I talk about this, that it's great that the legislature acts when a school full of white kids gets shot up, but if you saw the numbers as to what happens in the inner city, where you've got teenagers killing teenagers, how come we're not talking about that? And I think I'm almost quoting Jason as to how he talks about that, and it really hits me when he talks about that. But this year, if you believe that there should be more gun control, then you're on defense this year, because there are definitely some aggressive bills being filed in the other direction. What I don't see with a presidential election coming up next year, that the majority in the House or the Senate, they're really not looking to make headlines in this world, in this silo, because I don't think politically it's a smart thing to do. So I think that I haven't seen any firearms bills or gun control bills get agendaed in my committee. I'm not seeing it, because I just don't think there's an appetite for it in 2019. But something like that, I know that there are discussions. There's still a week left before the bills can get filed, but I think there's at least one committee that wants to address exactly that. So, and I
I feel
support
it's
that.
something that can open the door
Certainly.
to be built on in the future. Okay, my second question has to do with that private family who has the right to drill over the 2 aquifers in the Everglades, which will affect all of our drinking water up to Georgia, because it goes over 2 aquifers. And there was another case here in Miami-Dade County, a very large one, about the same thing, which is currently in the 3rd district. So is there anything that the state can do?
There is. It's in fact, I was with, I spoke with Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez, who my district overlaps between 2 senators' districts, so that's why I did another town hall last night in Little Havana, and he spoke to that exact issue, and there's a bill being filed specifically to address the issue regarding drilling in the Everglades in reaction to the court decision recently. So, both great questions. And you have the 3rd issue, but I know about that already. We talked about that privately.
Maybe I will make you come up to the front. Maybe just
No, you can just leave a seat.
You can just stand and
Oh, yes.
Okay, my name is Zef Finder. I have 2 questions with 1 answer. Okay, this is related to first electric and our emergency medical service. There's some literature I gave you that in Israel and also in Newark, New Jersey.
I had a conversation about this on Sunday.
Yes.
I know exactly what's going on. Go ahead.
And in Jersey City, they started those 2 towns here in the United States to provide an emergency medical service using electrical scooters. Those volunteer people trained, and it's shortened time for really something really emergency when people just brain damage, lose oxygen. So this is widely spread, this idea. We have, Israeli consulate here. They can provide you all information necessary if you need something. And Newark, New Jersey ahead of us, and Jersey City also.
Okay.
Second question. Shanghai, 24 million people. Not one scooter is gasoline powered. All city, only electrical. Can you imagine how we can breathe here?
All right. Thank you.
just in case you're not familiar with this emergency scooter concept, Google it. It's pretty cool if you're not familiar with it. So I will defer to the powers that be about whether or not it gets brought to our fair city, but it is a very interesting.
Just would like to add, sorry, I talked with 2 commissioners. Oh, it is so hard, where it's involved, Tallahassee and all. Nothing is easy. Somebody has to work on this. Idea is really work.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
Oh, wait, go ahead.
Please forgive me, I don't know to whom I need to. I'm Emily's husband, so don't worry about me. Real quick, Maggie, you mentioned something about they're working on infrastructure regarding sewers. I have a 2-part question. I don't know if there's an answer to either. One was, just because of bad experiences, we're all in technology, well, not all of us, but those of us that use computers and cell phones, a few of us do that. Are they doing anything about getting, again, I don't know if this is a statewide thing or it's Miami Beach, fiber optics to everybody's home for communication purposes? That was just one question. Are they working on anything like in the state? Because I hear it's like budget issues and that's why they don't get anywhere. AT&T advertises 100% fiber optics to Miami Beach. Guess what? 6 blocks away, no fiber optics. That was one thing. And the second thing is, and this is something that I don't know if either of you would have any input on, with the supposed tide rising here in South Florida, or the state of Florida, does Tallahassee look at South Florida? Is there any kind of super fun they're doing? I don't live on the water, but we all live on the water. My mother's house is on the water, but every time they do new construction, or when they rebuild a new home, the seawalls are raised. I don't know, about 2 feet over what's existing, but the next neighbors has their walls from 1940, whatever. So, isn't there some idea or fund that can be created to give maybe a tax break to the homes on the water who already have very wealthy homes, but there are a lot of people that lived on the water for 50, 60 years, they're not selling their homes, they live there, but they can't afford to rebuild their seawalls to a height that really protect everybody within. It's the border of our city, and even though maybe somebody in a condominium is not benefiting from having a home on the water, they are in fact affected if the tides spill over. You know, look at Louisiana and all these other places where eventually water has to be controlled. We recently got pumps years ago that mostly kind of work, but in time, we're gonna have a bigger problem. Is any kind of super fund being designed to raise our city walls cumulatively, like controlled, like the envelope of the building is controlled by a condo? Maybe the city of Miami Beach, as a, just for example, should have some sort of fund to raise the seawalls around all the islands for flood purposes. That's all, thank you.
All right, so I'll go second question first. So many people in this room know that the flooding that we have in Miami Beach, it's not just coming off from the sides. It's coming in from under us too. You know, when we're sitting on porous limestone, we can build all the seawalls that we want, but it's not going to stop the water from coming up from under us because we are I don't want to say man-made, we are a person-made city. But we are a made city. We are not naturally occurring here, and it's fill on limestone. So we've got water coming up from under us. So seawalls are important. It's really a local issue. I mean, this what you're describing when seawalls are being rebuilt or they're being raised. That's a product of city code as it relates to seawalls. And when it comes to the funding of seawalls, there are some local mechanisms for that. You're not going to see any appetite in Tallahassee for there being some sort of state fund to build up local seawalls. There may be a project here or there may be an appropriations project regarding stormwater, regarding the raising of some roads, working on some seawalls, some bay walks, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But creating some sort of statewide super fund or alternative, when you said tax breaks, I can see everybody, all my colleagues in Tallahassee cringing because they don't do tax breaks. But they don't do them for anybody really. They don't like tax.
It's for investors, though, if they're putting in a brand new building.
No, not at the state level. Corporate welfare is a dirty word in Tallahassee. They don't. There are some local incentives that have been created. I mean, I filed a bill to bring back TV and film because I got sick of watching the Georgia Peach go down every time I watch a movie, and that's not even that bill will never see the light of anything in the House. It's just the nature of things. It's just considered corporate welfare. And remind me the first question again.
The first one had to do with the technology. I'm not a big technology person,
But
we have a real fiber optic issue.
Sure.
Our wires are so old. I know it's whoever the industry is, whether it be aide,
it's
their
a
wires, but
utility.
they claim that it's a municipality issue that they're not allowed to bring in. I don't know if that's true or not.
It's not really a state issue on those types of things. I mean, it's county municipal for the most part. The only one where there's sort of state franchises on cable service, and that's probably going to get opened up too at some point, I would expect, based upon what I'm hearing. So.
I actually have a question based on a couple of things that I've heard already. So besides how much money Miami-Dade County generates for the state, the percentage of money that comes from coastal areas that are going to be affected by sea level rise means that without those coastal areas being around to generate income to the state becomes a little nub of poverty except for Disney and maybe other parts of Orlando, right? Is that kind of an oversight?
That's a great point. You should run for office.
But so is there not an opportunity, and this also gets back to some of the other broader questions that aren't so policy specific, but to have people who are concerned about this connect with people across the state in elected official capacity. I don't know what's the solution is, but
People are very responsive to their districts, but a letter from Miami Beach going to say, I don't know, District 1 in the Panhandle, they can't hear you. They don't read Miami in a lot of those districts. It's unfortunate. And what you're talking about, which is a great macro concept, goes back to what I talked about at the beginning, which is very hard to see Miami from Tallahassee. They love our money, but they don't love to give us money back. And that's a challenge that we face in what is essentially the tale of two states. You know, as soon as you clear Palm Beach, it's just, I don't want to say you're in South Georgia because you still have Orlando and a few places, but generally speaking, it's very different. I mean, you look at whether the presidential elections or the statewide elections, we are very different. Palm Beach down to Monroe, both on the revenue generating and demographics. So it's a real challenge when we've got redistricting coming up. Redistricting is coming up in the next couple of years, and it could change things. And when the census kicks in and we have redistricting, it could change things. It could change things for the better. It could change things for the worse. I mean, you should see some of the gerrymandering on the House districts. The Senate district's not as bad, but the House districts, there is a significant amount of gerrymandering and for state House, and nobody filed a lawsuit, at least for the state Senate and for the congressional districts. They filed a lawsuit and they said that it was unconstitutional what they were doing. But for the state House, they did not. So you'll see my friend Javier Fernandez, who's in the adjacent district, he has the most gerrymandered district I've ever seen. It's like this one. It's crazy. If you ever get a chance to look up the House district maps, you don't even know, like, so you think like somebody's playing a joke, because it's really what it is. So hopefully it'll change.
I do want to say one thing, and I have to agree with everything that Rep. Grieco has stated as far as you can't see Miami from Tallahassee. The only thing that I don't want to say disagree, but want to make known to you guys is that you have two of the loudest representatives that are willing to fight and demand to be heard on behalf of the citizens of Dade County and their constituents. So while you can't see Miami from Tallahassee, please know that every day, every opportunity that they have, both Senator Pizzo and Senator,
I love the promotion.
right? Representative Grieco are definitely out there making sure that tax dollars do come back so that we can get the infrastructure that we need, and that changes actually occur.
And they see our votes? That's the question?
No, because you don't vote for them. You don't, that's the thing, you don't vote for them.
No, I'm saying, the way we vote, how many votes we have, a percentage, and compare to the rest of us?
No, because they're running in Jacksonville and
Not for
Ocala.
governor, no?
Yeah. The governor has been very smart. I mean, the governor is not a stupid man. There was an article that said the best thing he's done is to not be stupid. And it was a great headline, and they're right, that the governor recognizes that he, although he got elected running a certain way, that he did not receive a mandate. It was still a very close election, and he recognizes that he doesn't just represent one half of the state. And you've seen him embrace science. You've seen him with a good budget that increases funding for public schools and some really good things. You know, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but the House is set up differently in that the Senate is a lot more moderate. And luckily, kind of what Maggie was talking about is that neither myself nor Jason, we don't get treated like freshmen. They don't like pat us on the head and think we're cute. Like, we're actually getting things done in months, where some of our predecessors couldn't get things done in years, for whatever reason. So I'm very proud. I've got bills that are already getting on agendas. They're already getting passed through committees. We've got more coming next week. Same thing with Jason. And these are things that weren't happening in the past, at least not for a few years. So I'm very proud of the fact that we're getting that done. And I had an hour-long meeting with the speaker last week, and he doesn't care what color, whether you have a D or an R next to your name. If a bill's good, a bill's good. And they're not going to kill it just because it's not their color or it's not their party, which is something to be commended, because good law is good law, and we're all for it.
Excuse me. Michael, I'm a little taken back by your response to the earlier questions about climate change and sea level rise. Now that it's possible to utter the words climate change in Tallahassee, why isn't it a state issue? Florida is surrounded by water. Miami Beach has resources to deal with sea level rise. Whether those resources are being expended properly or will be expended effectively, Miami Beach has the resources to at least attempt to deal with it. But there's an awfully lot of communities in Florida that don't have those resources. So my question is, what do you see as a possible role for the state of Florida in addressing issues of sea level rise for the state, because it is a statewide problem.
So,
And what do you plan to, do you plan to take a leadership role?
I do. So I need to remind everybody that up until, I think it was January 3rd was the inauguration. Up until January 3rd, no one in the executive branch was allowed to say climate change. It was funny, you can go back and watch committee hearings where members of the executive branch would make presentations and certain senators and representatives would try to get them to say it. And they weren't allowed. They really weren't allowed. So, what is it? A fish stinks from the head. And it's one with JJR, another senator, last night, and he made an entire presentation in flood boots. And he's got like little things written on them. They're great. And he said that he's actually going to walk around all of legislative session, except for when he's on the floor, with those boots on, as a protest. And that's great for a headline, and it's great to keep the conversation going. And you can do that a lot more on the Senate side. But it's a challenge. We've got a bicameral legislature. We've got a governor who is embracing, at least with his new appointments and what he's trying to do on the environmental side, he is showing the best he can a commitment to not only the issues related to the Everglades and the algae blooms and red tide, but to climate change in general and the concept that sea level rise is real. I mean, remember, a lot of what we've been doing in Miami Beach is it's not as relative to sea level rise as it is just we've always had flooding. And a lot of that had to be corrected to begin with. And yes, we have the resources, we have the bond capacity as a municipality here in Miami Beach to absorb some of those costs. You can't do it forever. This is a built-out city, you can't do it forever. And the cost of doing even portions of what we've done in Miami Beach, extrapolating that out throughout the coastal areas in the state, it's very challenging. I mean, if you look at the budget and you look at the appropriations requests that go from everything from sand renourishment and beach renourishment, which alone is a challenge, and building up our dunes and protecting us from storms, because their concern is more about storm resiliency. And sea level rise is, I don't want to say it's pushed aside, but it's a second conversation. Storm resiliency, especially after Hurricane Michael and previous to that Hurricane Irma, that's what is more of a conversation. And the frequency of those storms and the strength of those storms, which are related to climate change, but they're more focused on that impact of climate change because that's more real and that's more acutely traumatic, as opposed to something that is, in their mind, debatable and more of a slow burn than it is turning on the TV one day and seeing an entire city disappear because it got hit by a hurricane. So they're very concerned about storm resiliency and the long-term thing that we were talking about, which is somehow South Florida devaluing and losing its ability to generate funds for the entire state, and essentially drowning the golden goose. That is not at the forefront of folks' minds today. But it's only been, like I said, it's only been a couple months we can actually utter the words. So I want to see how the session goes. Legislative session has not started yet. We've only been in committee weeks. I've been up there a lot. We've only been there for committee weeks. So Tuesday is day one. Tuesday is day one. We will be on the floor. We already know what the first bill is, and it's a tweak to the medical marijuana statute that's going to go through. That'll be the first bill, I believe, that we're going to be voting on the floor. But as session goes through, I will have a better feel for it. Because right now, we don't have a feel for it because most of the committees, especially in the House, they've been slow playing. There's been a lot more presentations and very few bills being addressed. Now we're starting to get stuff to chew on, going into like last week and going into next week. We have more to chew on, and I'll have a better feel for where it's going to go. And then after first session, if I don't see the needle moving the way we're discussing that we think it needs to be moved, then we're ready for round two. But I'll know more after May. We'll do another one of these. We'll do like a post-session wrap-up. I'm sure Jason will be functional by then. And we'll be able to get a better feel for where the budget was at the end, what appropriations we got back, especially for our stormwater projects. I've made appropriations requests for local stormwater and data collection projects specifically for our city. So we'll see if we're able to get that back and see what they've done throughout the state with those appropriations. It'll be interesting to watch. Yes, sir.
My name is Henry Patel. I'm here. I'm not a Miami Beach resident, but I'm a Miami resident, and Jason Pizzo is my state senator. I ran for state House 180, if you remember, a couple of years back. My point of addressing is, I'm a hotelier by trade, and if you are aware, the biggest challenge we are fighting, even as the city of Miami Beach, is the vacation rentals. And there are one after another bills have been introduced in the state of preempting every law a local municipality have made. Quickly getting to the point, many cities around the country which have been on top of as a hotelier and full-time involved in the hotel association is many cities have regulated where I'm okay. Initially when the bill was presented a couple of years back, I was in Tallahassee, almost every session I have been there because of this bill. Initially when it was presented by Stubbe and Brandeis, two senators, they said, okay, our veterans and our seniors need some extra income, so they should be allowed to rent their homes. That's what the exact intent they said. And soon, in a little bit, the whole thing changed to having one owner having 5 condos and 5 houses to rent. So I would like to know your position, but it's challenging because our job market is getting impacted big time. Nobody has presented how our job markets are going to be impacted, people who work for the industry. Number 2, it drives up the real estate market of condos. People who are looking for affordable housing, they can't get it. Because if a condo is generating 5,000 revenue every month, they're going to sell it. They're not going to sell it cheap. Thirdly, it can have negative impact on the people who own real estate because nobody wants to live where every other day have a new neighbor coming and sleeping. Last but not the least, we as an industry have generated millions of dollars of tax revenue over many years. All the infrastructure and development is done by us. We are the risk takers, but there has to be a balance. Otherwise, we're going to literally have a dark economy because all these people who own the condos, they don't contribute back to the economy. They live abroad, Brazil, Venezuela, wherever not.
All great points. So, when I first got elected to the city commission, actually, I got to sit on the League of Cities board for a couple of years. So, and I was invited back recently to speak to the League of Cities, which are, their big push is local rule, okay, to prevent as many state preemptions as possible and allow municipalities and counties to dictate how they want to run their cities, especially when it comes to things like vacation rentals. So Airbnb, vacation rentals, home away, whatever you want to call it. Here in Miami Beach, we have a very unique vacation rental issue. The issue is that it was running amok for so long, and then maybe the city went almost too far and made some rough headlines in the other direction. And then the problem is now is every time I look at a city agenda, they keep moving the goalposts. And when you do that, you poke the bear. The bear is all people up in Tallahassee that don't believe in this type of regulation to begin with. And if the reports start going back that you just keep moving the goalposts, whether it be for folks who are legitimately trying to rent out a room or rent out the cottage behind their house, which I don't have a problem with, but if it's people that are renting out big party houses or they're renting out their apartment next to your apartment, that's not what people want for their quality of life. It's really a quality of life issue. All the times that I dealt with this as a commissioner, I was never lobbied by a hotelier. And it's the God's honest truth. I've never spoken to a hotelier about Airbnb or vacation rentals. It's always been from residents. It's been from either single-family homeowners or from folks who live in condos who are having problems trying to control it because at the time there was really no mechanism within condos to regulate illegal code violators for vacation rentals. So that bill will get filed every year. The best thing that happened to you, if you don't want it heard, is that Airbnb picked a fight with what they did in Israel. So a lot of folks were very upset about that. So I don't think they're getting as much love as they've gotten in the past. But they've got some big time lobbyists, and some of whom I'm friends with. But they know where I sit on the issue. I've been very consistent about it. I think Jason's been very consistent about things that he said about what he thinks about local rule. And that's one of those where I believe that municipalities and counties should be able to make their own decisions regarding vacation rentals. So, I want to see Miami Beach do the right thing and be consistent and stop moving the goalposts because it makes my job more difficult.
Thank you.
I bet she wants to ask about libraries. Let's go ahead and check my email.
Yes, of course it's going to be about libraries. What else? As you know, there's a state aid to libraries program, which in the Great Recession was cut back by 30%. I think it's time to start getting back. It was 20 million or 22 million last year. It used to be 36. Miami-Dade County gets a good share of that. It's one of those things where if we put in the effort to support libraries, we get more of that state library system. So I was just wondering, in the process, what's the chance, if not this year, maybe next year, to see if we can get something going? Thanks.
So the folks from the Miami-Dade Library System actually came and met with me in Tallahassee, so this has already been on my radar. And fortunately, even after the recession, what you see, and I've actually seen similar chart to what you sent me earlier today, is it is increasing every year. It's gradual, and they're trying to get back to it, but at the same time, we are in a world where taxes will not be increased, so there will not be any sort of tax increases, and everybody's clamoring for every dollar, and especially when, and this is not a high-profile, sexy item that people are going to write articles about. And politicians like articles, and they like sexy, and they like controversy. And most of the big dollar conversations are about education. Those are the big, because there's so much profit and emotion coming from so many different directions when it comes to education, and it should. But you've got private schools, you've got religious schools, you've got charter schools, and everybody's got their hand out. Everybody is drafting legislation and trying to get their hand in the cookie jar for the budget. So I will do my best to make sure that it stays at or above the level that it is now. But to see a huge jump, we would have to see an even bigger jump in revenue generation before we can see everybody benefit across the board on something like that. But it's a great inquiry, and it's on my radar, and it'll be on my radar again. I can't hide from you, so it's good stuff.
My question ties into what you said earlier, the hotelier. Our economy seems to be very levered toward tourism, which seems to cause a brain drain because a lot of the good jobs are in the Northeast or in California. We don't have much of a tech economy. Do other state representatives talk about what they can do to diversify the economy and bring up the median income, which in this county is $48,000?
They do, but they talk about it on more of a Florida level, not on a Miami level. So obviously, the local elected officials, they want to bring in business, they want to, send cute letters to Amazon or to, whomever is thinking about opening up a headquarters. But Florida there's a lot more talk about expanding agriculture and manufacturing related to agriculture, industries like the hemp industry, things like that, where they're really untapped, and we can take advantage of our season-round weather. But and generating solar, and then any sort of tech industries that spin off from expanding solar in Florida, those are really the conversations that I'm hearing on industries that could come down here. But when it comes to, listen, this city is kind of limited by geography and topography. We can only do so much with what we're doing here. For the county, that's the county mayor and the local elected officials trying to move things around. The state's not trying to tinker with the markets. It's a very free market mentality up there. So the generation and this goes back to corporate welfare and incentives. They don't like those words. They don't like them. They don't embrace them. That's not the world that we're currently living in Florida. And the county and the municipality is going to have to go alone to attract those businesses. There's a lot of pullback even on incentives that are already on the books that they want to take off.
Henry Stoller, 1500 Ocean Drive. Michael and Maggie, you both touched this evening on the way you cannot see Miami from Tallahassee, which is a great concern. So I think it's very important that the city of Miami Beach be effective in lobbying. A year ago or so, the city entered into an agreement with a lobbyist firm named Southern Strategy Group at a fee of $107,000 per year. that is a drop in the bucket. In fact, Michael, you may have been on both sides of this because you, I guess, would have been lobbied by Southern and by others at the time you were on the commission, the ones who responded to RFQ, whether you were or not. You can't do much with a lobbyist for $107,000. Its sub-lobbyist is Ron Book, and this is not a question torn from today's headlines. I am simply asking whether, in your view, the city is being effectively represented in the uphill battle of getting us heard in Tallahassee.
So, it's weird. So when I was on the commission, I was always of the opinion that the best lobbyists were the elected officials. And that is true if you can actually have a substantive conversation about whatever the issue is. The value of municipalities, even small, North Bay Village, they have a lobbyist. The value of lobbyists in Tallahassee for municipalities is on appropriations. It's the ability of having appropriate, because what will end up happening is, like, I file appropriations bills. With my staff, we don't do that. They're drafted and essentially submitted by the municipality via their lobbyists. I sponsor them, and I try to help them navigate through the waters, but the lobbyists are the ones that are trying to get them across the finish line. The lobbyists, listen, whether it's Ron Boat or Southern Strategies or corporate or whoever it is, they're power players in Tallahassee, and they can be heard on both sides of the aisle, and they can essentially get things done when it comes to appropriations. On the substantive bills, on issues where the city or the county has an opinion about something, that's where it's like, yeah, that's cute. It's cute that Miami Beach has an opinion about that, but that's not what's moving the needle in Tallahassee, because again, the reactions are very localized. If somebody from Clearwater calls me and tells me that they support a bill, I'll make a note of it, but that doesn't really move me unless they make a really good point, because they're not my constituent and I'm not answerable to them. I'm answerable to you. So I have to be able to make sure I can look my constituents in the face and do things what's best for them. So I do believe that lobbyists are effective for municipalities for appropriations. That's been my experience. I don't know how it's been with you.
No, I would have to agree, and agree with Representative Grieco, especially the lobbyists for Miami Beach. They have been working very hard. They have submitted several legislative funding initiative requests. They make sure that we receive them. If we have any questions or corrections that need to be had, they automatically respond. Kind of laugh because one of the lobbyists, I call her my Friday night date, because every Friday night there's always some question or some editing, and so it's she's always very much available. So it's definitely necessary, at least for the legislative funding, and they are definitely working hard for you guys.
But looking at the related question, if the lobbyists are only effective on money, then who is representing us on the substantive issues?
That's my job.
Senator.
Well, yes, of course it is, Michael, and I understand that, but you can't cover everything. The city commission goes to great lengths to adopt every year a set of priorities for legislative action in Tallahassee. This year there are 23. This is a 60-day session. And
If it makes you feel any worse, I haven't even seen them.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you my copy.
Okay.
But haven't seen there are.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Session starts next week. It'd be nice to see those at some
Well,
point.
that in itself is a little worrisome. It means that someone's dropping the ball if that isn't being communicated in some perfectly routine way to the senator and to you, Michael. I'm really amazed to hear that.
Yeah, no, listen, it's tough to utilize the lobbyists for issues, because a lot of times an issue that's a priority for one municipality may be in conflict with one of their clients or with another municipality. So there we go, guys. So I haven't even seen it. It's great. Rocco,
Yes, sir.
memorize this.
So actually, just to build on that, so as, in the case where a resident is fortunate to have a representative in Tallahassee who he or she feels represents his or her views adequately, that's a good thing. But that's only as far as it goes. The resident of whatever municipality doesn't have any further recourse to make a case for something that could affect people statewide beyond the borders of his or her district.
No, I mean, unless they're gonna come up and speak at a hearing to a committee, the answer is usually no. I mean, or you get one of your local elected officials to go up with you or go up for you during date days or other days and communicate that. You know, and the lobbyists, they're up there full time. You know, they're up there full time. They're essentially donors to everyone's campaign. So, I mean, it's just blindly, like everything, it's just the way it works. And so they have the relationships. I mean, I can tell you that, say, the lobbyist that the city of Miami Beach uses has a better relationship with the chair of my subcommittee than I do, because they've known him longer. I'm new. I don't know where he lives. I don't know what his wife's name is. They know all this stuff. So they can move the needle and do whatever inside baseball horse trading they're doing to accomplish maybe just one thing for the city, which is one more thing than we've gotten in the past. So I do see the value, and if you spend $100,000 to get $1 million back, then you know that's a pretty good investment. So you know, I'm helping them do that. You know, I'm the one sponsoring this and sticking my neck out for the city. But we can't go do it alone, because listen, they filed 20 bills. I filed another 10 with all the repealer bills and everything else. I can't manage all those appropriations, so I do need those lobbyists to help, and they do. They'll reach out and be like, hey, we got this last one on the agenda. Here's what it is. They'll do a little blurb for us, and then I'll work on it with Franco, and this is what we do. So they're a value. They're like substaff to us when they're working on the bills that we filed. So there's definitely a value. I think I'm trying to try to find. All right. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, hi, my name is Gladys Rosman. I am not used to that. My name is Gladys Rosman. Is that okay?
Yeah, just go for it.
All right. The thing is that I have a point to make about the short-term rental. I had experienced that seriously because I had seen the prostitution. I could not see it inside the house, but I could see it was the Uber and the young girls coming to my neighbor, and he was renting the house, and the noise goes all the way through 3 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't get in because I had a lady or complaint. So the issue is not only where I live is in Lagos Drive, it's a residential area, which means I do believe someone has to pay respect to the people who are residential in the residential area.
So this,
talking back to this gentleman.
No, I know, but as your state rep, I just want to, I know where you're going with this, and
no, you don't know.
What's that?
You don't know where I'm going.
No, but I'm
it was a point to make that is a very serious concern for residential like me who live here 30 years.
Yes.
So that's the point I wanted to make. So it's a very serious issue. It's not something that to be considered, oh, it is temporary. It is a serious residential issue. If they want to party, they have to go to a hotel, not in the residential homes. They have to be restricted, and they have to be fined.
Understood.
All the way to point finish.
I am agreeing with you 100%.
Okay, so that's my point, and that's about it. Second point is, I have a very serious concern when you mentioned that it's a different world in Tallahassee. I get it. I don't know the depth of it, but you mentioned committees. So the power that, in my opinion, I am not a politician. I am involved, but not in politics like every day, but I don't do understand. So the point is, where is the power? In the committees, where you put your bill and work with a team to move your ideas? Where is it? Is that the way?
No, the power is in the speaker's office. So the way.
So that's the number one question.
Okay, so the way it works, I'll be very direct. The way it works is that the Speaker of the House controls everything. That is the way the rules are set.
Yes, I'm in the committees.
The Speaker of the House tells everybody, including the committees, what to do. Before they do anything, they have to check with them. And he appoints everybody. He appoints the committee chairs, he sets up the committees, he determines who the rules chair is. A bill could get through every committee, and that's great, but it only happened because he allowed it.
He likes.
That's just the way that it is. And then at that point, he taps Representative Sproles, who is the rules chair, and the rules chair will determine if something gets to the floor. It is predetermined on some level. There's healthy debate. How it's voted on in different committees is not predetermined, but a lot of it is scripted. And it only happens because it's allowed to happen. And if I file a bill that's the greatest bill in the world, if they decide that they don't want it to happen, it's not happening.
So I'd like to build more on the question that you say, that triggered my concern. You say Tallahassee is another world. So how can you be effective when they don't give a damn about us?
No, I didn't say that.
I do say that.
All right,
It's an opinion, not you. I'm saying they don't give a damn because we are providing the money, and you both make a point. If this city goes down on the water, which is one of the biggest concerns, the money will stop running to them. So that is a huge issue. So they should really consider that we provide money, but we need the attention.
I'm agreeing with you on that.
So then, how can I get the point that you say is like a black and white world, and it's hard to get through it?
It is hard.
This is what I meant. So how can we expect you to, not that I'm saying you, I will tell you how, but it's a question, how can you be effective?
I wouldn't
What
do-
help do you need
I'm gonna
from
answer.
us?
I'm gonna answer you. Okay,
Okay.
here we go.
I have very clear questions and
No, I know.
the answers.
Okay. The answer is, I wouldn't have taken this job if I didn't think I could get stuff done. It's not what I do. I would never apply for a job that I didn't think I could accomplish something, and accomplish something that my predecessors couldn't. This is not fun. It's not fun to be away from my family. It's not fun to be away from my law practice. It's not fun. It's not fun to be away from my hometown. It's not fun. And it's not like I'm going to, Las Vegas, Florida. It's Tallahassee. So,
What can we do?
no, you gotta let me talk now. So, let me do this. So, the answer is, it is not easy. But at the same time, we have a speaker who's from Dade County. We have a very strong Dade delegation, which we work very closely with for issues related to Miami-Dade County. And those are bipartisan issues. We have a very strong coalition of, I think, 27 legislators, senators, and representatives, Republicans and Democrats. And we don't necessarily vote as a block, but we are heard as a block if the issue is important enough, especially when it comes to things like education, like issues like sea level rise, because even the Republicans who live in Dade County, they recognize the fact that climate change and sea level rise are real. And that is a real thing to do. Now, at the end of the day, there are statewide issues that get addressed in the House that we get pushed to the wayside. And that's just the reality of the demographics of the state. But Jason, Senator Pizzo, did not run for Senate twice to go up there and not get things done. And I didn't go through the crap that I went through to go up there and not get things done. So the answer is, it's going to be done.
This is an important question
Last
about
one.
education.
Everybody's gonna have to.
Last one.
Yes, the question about education. You say there is an important issue, and there is a big issue with the money and the charter school. I don't know what influence you can have. I don't know how, but you mentioned it was very strong, because the point is the money and all coming from all positions. But the issue is the money. It is our money, our taxpayer, the money I pay. So why should they assign that money to a private enterprise for charter school?
Okay,
I
so-
have a very big issue with that.
Okay, so
Thank you.
the issues regarding charter schools, public schools, and you have to remember that charter schools are public schools too. Those are not private schools, they may be for profit, but they are public schools, and they are attended the same way a public school would be. And they do receive public funds. The problem that you have is that they don't have the same accountability system that the public school system does. And I'm of the opinion that if you're going to open things up, and that's where things are seeming to go when it comes to charter schools and maybe even for vouchers, there are some things you can't fight because you just don't have the votes, but at least we can get accountability. So everybody's operating on the same playing field. Because all the public schools are getting their A rating and their F rating and their B rating and they're getting rated by school and by district. But the charter schools are kind of operating in a void where they're just like high performing. And so it's a very different standard. They don't have the same reporting requirements, they don't have the same testing requirements. So once that playing field gets equaled, the issue about money, it's less of a black and white issue. So I will continue to fight my wife, who's Christine's right here, by the way, I make her come to these things sometimes, but I promise I take her to dinner afterwards, so it's good. But Christine went to public school, I went to public school, my grandmother was a public school teacher, both my parents went to public school, my 4th grader's in public school, I speak public school. So you're never going to hear me be on the wrong side of that issue, because that's how I ran, that's who I am, and that's who I am when I'm up there. And if anybody follows me on social media, so I took my door off. There's public institutions as well that are fighting for dollars. So it's a real challenge.
Question back.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to do a couple more and then I'm starting.
3 more.
All right, 3 more, no problem. This is what happens when Jason doesn't come.
Hi, good evening. My name is Annie Sosa. Thank you so much for having us. This is our first time here. You just mentioned Miami-Dade College about 3 weeks ago. I'm also director of Miami-Dade College Wilson Campus's Student Life. So I was there with a delegation of my students, and I appreciate you taking the time to speak to them and listen to their concerns. I'm here today on behalf of our small company that we just started called Wish You Would, which addresses single-use plastic and the issue that it's creating on the environment. You alluded earlier to the ban on plastic bags being addressed in Tallahassee. And while I was up there with my students, I learned that Representative Sabatini...
No, don't talk about it.
He actually mentioned that he would ban any ban on single use, and that was a high concern for me and my business partner who joins me today, Joanna, and of course our community. So I guess my question is, besides little things such as our small business that helps, swap single-use plastic for alternatives, and beach cleanups that we host on a regular basis, and awareness and education, what else can we do as community members to expedite this issue, not the issue, but the results and solutions towards this issue?
It's another one of these preemption issues. On a macro libertarian philosophy, it's government regulation that is not embraced by the majority party in Florida. And we have to fight tooth and nail for every piece of legislation that we can push against when it comes to preemptions, especially when it comes to issues in the environment. Listen, I did everything that I could within an inch of my life when it came to local legislation that was legal, whether it was on the styrofoam, whether it was changing the hotels to use reusable flatware, which they're switching to now. What they're doing now with the straws, everything. It all helps, but you'll have it one municipality here or there. But surprisingly, it's not something that's universally embraced in our state. We are not California. We are not Oregon. We are Florida, which again, if you get a chance to travel throughout Florida, which I've done a lot lately, there are very different parts of Florida that have very different opinions about very different things, whether it be plastics or Confederate statues or whatever you want to talk about. So it's been a fascinating education. Representative Sabatini has a few bills that I don't agree with, but I'm also co-sponsoring a bill with him that I do agree with, because you can't make it personal. You can't make it personal. So I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the fact that he kind of then trolls environmentalists on social media, but it is what it is. I mean, he's a new guy like me, and he's doing what he's got to do.
Michael, we all know what happened with the debacle in New York with Amazon, and I know Miami-Dade was in the running to have it here. Is there anything that's new on the horizon as far as offering them anything more to bring them here?
I know that Jimenez was doing what he could recently to keep the door open for them and to make it as attractive as possible, but I can tell you that at the state level, you're not going to see any sort of incentive package getting floated out there. It may happen at the county level, and even then the counties are very limited as to what they can do. There's very few legal ways to create tax breaks. Because remember here, our tax revenue is generated mainly from property tax.
Well, we used to do it for the movie industry, and
But-
they stopped that.
And they killed that. I filed a bill to bring it back. They laughed at me.
Really?
So-
How do you feel personally about it?
I think that we should be incentivized, because film and TV, it's not just about the jobs it creates. It's not just about, it's fun to have a movie get shot in your town. It's about advertising. It's about Miami Vice and people seeing movies. You know, nothing's worse than like watching Dexter or one of these shows, and they have the wrong kind of palm trees because they're shooting it in California, but they're pretending like they're in Miami Beach. Like there's a problem with that. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating because Georgia got smart and they generated a lot of revenue as a result of it, and they created a lot of jobs. And that's always the thing that I try to sell on people, is jobs. It creates jobs. Like the port of the airport alone, 500,000 jobs directly or indirectly are affected by the port of the airport. These are, that's employment. And then those people need a place to live, and they need to eat, and they need to do all these things. And it's the same thing now with rail expansion. So there's going to be more rail expansion with Tri-Rail and Brightline, and hopefully that'll create jobs, and then it'll create density amongst those, along those railways, which will create more jobs. But these incentive packages, it's just it's a philosophical, and I can't question them. It's a philosophy. It's not Republican or Democrat. It's a philosophy regarding corporate welfare and creating incentives for businesses. It's a free market concept which is embraced amongst the leadership in the Florida House, and it's something. That's the world that I'm operating in. So you have to know your audience, and that's where we are right now, whether we like it or not. And that's not going to change, at least not.
So you're all for it if it happens?
Very supportive. No, listen, I'm very supportive in bringing job creators. I'm all about it, especially big ticket job creation. Listen, the Super Bowl creates jobs, and that's coming next year. We like that. We like that a lot. We like things like that, but that's a one-off. They're here for a week. So, you want something that is a consistent job creator and money generator, and not just by creating some like mega mall out next to the Everglades.
Okay, last up. Any more questions? Going once, going twice.
Can I close?
Mine's gonna be quick.
Go quick. He doesn't even need a mic.
I don't need a mic.
He doesn't need a mic.
My name's Anthony Steso. I live on Collins Avenue and 67. I'm just curious, is there any talk or rumors of a state income tax ever happening?
No. There's no, listen, there will not, if you say the word tax, you are not going to see, at least in this administration, a new tax created, or a tax increase, or a tax rate. You won't see, that is not on any horizon whatsoever. We're doing great as a state. Our numbers are great, despite hurricanes and Zika and all sorts of other biblical things that happen down here. We're doing great. We are in a very good place, and the argument is it's because we're very conservative about our taxes, and we make it very attractive for folks. Somebody said something yesterday, like there's a reason why you go to a Dolphins game and it's filled with Jets fans, and it's because so many New Yorkers have moved down here because they're getting killed on taxes. It's killed on taxes. And here, and this is the one point that I'll make, there's a push right now to increase sales tax for food and beverage in the city of Miami Beach from 9 to 10%. Stop increasing taxes. There's no need. There's plenty of people here, there's plenty of money here. It's about controlling your spending.
That's right.
It's about controlling your spending and working with what you got. I am not a tax and spend Democrat. I am sorry. If that's what you thought I was, I never put that on a flyer. That's not me. I am very conservative when it comes, and that's not like a red or blue thing. It's just a word, but with what we do with our budgets. And whether it was the city budget, listen, I was the first person to yell every time I was on the commission to lower the tax rate. To lower it so much that we're actually lowering taxes. Even if your property value went up 10%, I want your taxes to be lower. Stop hiring people. Stop having these bloated budgets with these bloated pensions, and the staff in Miami Beach is over 2,000 people working for the city of Miami Beach. And I guarantee I can run an efficiency expert through this city alone, and I can eliminate 200 jobs. Because I guarantee in certain departments, there's 3 people doing the jobs alone. And you know how much that costs? Because it's not just $50,000 per salary. It's the pension and the benefits and all that stuff. And it rolls up and it adds, and we're paying so much in our pension liability. And we are paying so much in our debt. It's going to come bite us in the butt. It really is. So on a statewide level, you're not going to see it. So I just want to close with this. Look how many people stayed. This is great. And kudos to Maggie for staying, because so we all go back. We've all been in the trenches together in the prosecutor's office for years. So to have a few of us up there, and the minority leader in the House also. So the minority leader in the House is Keone McGee, who's in his last 2 years. He's another former Miami-Dade prosecutor. There's a few of us out there. And we're fighting the good fight. And it's great to have people who have gone through this together and are similarly thinking on a lot of issues. And it's good to have partners up there and someone to commiserate with when things aren't going great. But I can assure you, and I will try to be myself and Jason right now, that you have resources in us. We get back to everybody. We are here for you. We have great staffs. Our staffs have like sub-staffs, and they're great too. Use us as a resource. Like what happened with some of the best ideas are just plagiarized from residents. They really are. You know, the idea about doing the sprinkler stuff, it started one with a resident and one with a lobbyist, and that's what we're doing. That's why we're doing it. And we've been talking about it for years. And it's probably going to extrapolate out to other issues related to condos with amendments. So all I ask is don't be shy. Don't wait for a town hall to talk to us. I mean, I know most of you have my cell phone number. Email us, contact us. We will get back to you. This is the style of government you should embrace. It shouldn't be people that are hiding from you. It should be people running to you for the best ideas. And you have no idea how great it is to be back. So, thank you guys.
So thank you guys for coming out tonight and staying to the bitter end. And Christine, thank you for being so patient. I hope you get a really lovely dinner this evening as a result. And for all of you guys, thank you for coming and for staying and for asking your questions. And if there's anything that you didn't have a chance to ask but would like to, shoot us an email at our Ask Us Anything portal on our website, and we'll pass it on to the powers that be. Thanks for coming out, everybody.